Bazaar. This is one of the most uh, special startups built from India, one of the first unicorns to go IPO, many stories to share, uh, and scaled up, slow, steady, and here today is a winner with us. Many of you may not know Yashish is also one of the Iron Men from India. He is a very keen sports person, and many stories from there as well. I also have with me Apur Chamaria. Apur heads startups and VC relationships for Google in India. And not just that, Apurv is also an investor. He's worked very deeply in many tech companies, but also prior to that in a pharma company to begin with. He's headed India for Ranbaxy at a very early stage. Apurv is an investor in about 100 startups. He's again got a lot of diverse knowledge to share here. Not standing between Yashish, Apurv, and the audience, over to Apurv to take this forward.
Very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you, Yashish, for being with us. So, did you cycle it here or did you drive?
We drove in here.
By the way, that's very rare for Yashish. Yashish is a supremely fitness conscious individual, and I wanted to read out something for you. Yashish thinks he doesn't do this running marathons, cycling for fitness goals, but it's part of his life. It brings him happiness. It's core to who he is. An interesting thing I discovered when I was researching on Yashish is the fifth fastest Ironman. Now, that's amazing. Something to aspire for. Big round of claps for Yashish. So Yashish founded Policy Bazaar, which is a household name today. And the credit largely goes to the way Yashish has built and groomed the team since its very early inception days. I have a lot of dear friends who are a part of Policy Bazaar and Yashish's journey, and can say that everybody swears by it and has a very long tenure at the firm. So thank you for being who you are, Yashish. So Policy Bazaar started at a time when digital fintechs were not a big thing, and it created a marketplace for consumers to access financial products and buy. Uh, I'm going to hand over the mic to Yashish and tell us a little bit about the growth journey. What were the different phases? What was the genesis of the idea, and how did he grow the business?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Uh, so this company started back in 2008, and the reason for it was, uh, you know, when people in the middle class fall sick. So I call them the 3 Ds: death, disease, or disability. When any of those happen, and these are very boring things, but statistically they do happen in the world. And when they happen in India, for a great part of the population, there was no financial recourse. Because if you fall sick, there's a medical cost. If somebody dies, their salary goes away, their income goes away, the families may be dependent on them. If somebody falls, so we used to wonder, why do people not buy more term insurance, more health insurance? It's a very small part of the market in 2008. But a lot of people in India, there was no dearth of insurance policies, but most of them were investment policies, right? Old time, almost everybody had them, but they were not of much use if somebody actually fell sick or somebody died. So we decided to just start educating the people about it and keep building it. Now there were various phases. The first phase is how do you make money? Because when we tried to sell insurance, very difficult to sell insurance. So we used to do a lot of advertising kind of revenue in the first phase. I would say 2008 to 11 is that phase when our own business model did not make sense, but we took alternate business models which we did not believe in, but we said short term they'll help us to kind of stay alive. Then 2011 onwards is what I would call us having found the business model, which was the sales business model, and saying, okay, now we will scale this. And I would say 2011 to 15 is that time when we scaled up our operations multifold. We went from an organization which was perhaps 300 people to about maybe 10,000 people. And the entire, whatever you know as Policy Bazaar today kind of came into being. Then I would say was the, stage 3, when we started thinking much more around uh, what all can we do once we have this asset. And that was much more around data, much more around analytics, much more around claim support, the things that you would usually not expect from someone like a Policy Bazaar. But that was to kind of, let's say aspire to a greater vision phase. And that carries on. Every couple of years, we do something very different, which people like us all over the world don't do. And, I would say today, probably it's the most advanced insurance distribution engine in the world. And it has become that because of that phase 3. Because up to phase 2, we were just scale of something. Yeah.
Thank you, Yashish. So, our session is all about how do you scale businesses. And Policy Bazaar has been a phenomenal example of that. The financial services industry is very regulated. So it's not an industry where you can do whatever you want. You can advertise however you want. You cannot do a good job of customer support. So, and a lot of founders might be building in this space or other similar regulated spaces like life sciences, defense. So, Yashish would love to hear your views on when founders are building in a regulated space and they want to grow their company, what are the things they should particularly think about?
So I think there are multiple approaches many people have suggested, right? We did not ever believe in the approach that, so we took regulation very seriously. That's number one. Regulation was and still is handled directly by me. And it's one of the key pieces that we focus on. We respect it a lot. And sometimes the rules may not make sense at that stage, but there's no point making fun of those rules. The point is the rules are there and you have to work within that framework. You can try and be creative about the interpretation of those rules, but the rules are still there, right? And I think the second thing we did, which was from a scaling perspective, very critical, we created a huge amount of freedom for everybody, but we kept a cultural uniformity. So I call it operational freedom, cultural uniformity. And I'll tell you why that's important from a regulatory standpoint. You cannot take somebody's culture out of them. So as long as a particular ethos exists in almost everybody, after that they're free to do whatever they want. But and also because you want to scale fast in a regulated environment, you cannot have too much control. If you put too much control, scale nahi aayega. If you scale too fast, you'll break the regulation. So how do you manage both of these? You basically hire people who understand this ethos and decide to follow the rules anyway. But then you give them huge amount of freedom to do what they want within those areas. As long as those people understand the boundary rails, they can usually do both of these. They can both scale. And so I'm very proud to say there are probably 100 plus people at Policy Bazaar who understand the regulation very well, understand the nuances of it, know when they are stepping over the line, know the principles of it, and are independent and free to do whatever they feel like. But there's no control structure, like there's no CFO who's watching over them at every step and saying, I will approve every activity. That we do not have. But we still manage to stay within the regulatory bounds. That is by getting that deep understanding of regulatory ethos in almost every part of the business.
Would you like to hold on to it? Thank you. So Yashish, as founders scale companies, they often struggle to hire and retain talent. And of course, once you become bigger, it becomes easier, relatively easier. So any advice to founders on, and without retaining talent, it's hard to scale.
So we are extremely special in that. And I just mentioned in 2011, we probably had 250 people. Of those people, about 150 are still in the company. So that is what you call retention of people, right? So they just stay and they don't leave. In this market, when everything was happening, and I remember once one person was calling our people, and they all come and tell me immediately. I knew the person, so I called him up and I said, "Listen, uh, don't bother about trying to hire our people. Even if you offer them 4 times, they will not join you. I do have 1 or 2 people that are not doing very well with us. If you want, you can take them." And that person said that, no, I don't want those people. I said, trust me, they are better than whoever you hire. And I meant it in a genuine way, not in a show-off way, but in a genuine way. So none of these people, we have people who have become, so we have a lot of people from the IITs and IIMs, but at the same time, we also have a lot of people who barely went to college and who are at very, very senior positions, right? And people talk about skill set. See, we have a large contact center. It is about 10,000 people now. The person who runs this does not know how to speak Hindi properly. Okay, he's from Sikkim. His name is Jerry. So what I say is 2 things. I think trust and patience are the 2 most undervalued characteristics of success. I'll share one very small anecdote with you, not about policy, but something else. I learned day before. Who are the 10 most richest individual shareholders of American stocks? Individual shareholders of American stocks, not companies. These are not founders. They're just individual investors who've built the highest. And of the 20 of them, what is common amongst all 20 of them? They are all dead. What does that tell you? They held those stocks for so long that they have become that valuable. And that's what tells you the value of patience and trust, right? So if you hold on to something for too long, it becomes, and that's what these people have done. Today, I'm very glad to say this, I say this all the time, Jerry is the richest guy from Sikkim. It's not Baichung Bhutia, it's not Danny Denzongpa. It's a guy who started in a call center and just stayed at it for 3 companies with me. And he's the richest guy in Sikkim today, right? And I think that's what trust and patience does. As long as you meet the right people, if you meet the wrong people, then okay, then it'll hurt you. But we, all 150 of these people have significant stock in the company, have done very well. But that doing well has come after 17 years of both trust and patience. There were a lot of people who were more capable than these people. Those are the other 100. I can almost assure almost none of those 100 are anywhere close to these 150 in terms of where they have reached in life. And the only quality they did not have, I say this again and again, was trust and patience. Because उस time पे क्या था? I still remember there was a guy, उसकी salary 6 lakh रुपए थी उस time पे. He said, I'm getting 9 lakhs somewhere. I said, you realize you have 32 lakhs of stock? He says, हाँ ये stock वगैरह तो मिलता रहता है, पता नहीं कंपनियों में क्या है, देते रहते हैं, कुछ नहीं. That stock today would have been 320 crores. He left, he joined that 9 lakh company. फिर कहीं. Then he was looking for a job. So he joined back. He worked in my wife's company for some time. My wife was running some software company. Then something else. Today he runs another business. Then he left that. My point is, if you don't have trust and patience, you don't go anywhere. You shouldn't keep jumping for this कि कोई 6 लाख की बजाय 9 लाख दे रहा है, कुछ कर रहा है, कुछ नहीं है उसमें. बकवास. It's all waste. You're wasting your life. Find a good team, trust it, have patience, build together, you will achieve something great. And I think that's what's the ethos of everybody. And I'll tell you a very simple story. When I started Policy Bazaar, it was of no interest to me because please, आज जो Policy Bazaar बनाया, we couldn't see it back then, yaar. And I would rather do a job in the UK. And for me, that was a better option. But for my team, it was not a better option that I left. Because funding was on my shoulders, right? Because I was the one people were investing in. And without that funding, the business could not have been built. And for the team, it was necessary I was there. So I had it in me to put my interest behind and say, our team is more important. 19 families are more important than one family. If I did not have that, I wouldn't have got Policy Bazaar. Because मैं अकेला कुछ बनाता रहता. That's the other team. Many times you see, अकेला बंदा निकला होता है कि मैं पूरी कंपनी बनाऊंगा, खुद ही बनाऊंगा, सारा स्टॉक अपने पास ही रखूंगा. Okay, even when you talk about founder stock, we are one of the rare companies when management stock is more than founder stock. And we've done that on purpose. Right? We've done that on purpose. Because हमारे ही हाथ में था ना, देना तो हमारे ही हाथ में होता है. तो लोग कहते हैं, I trust my team, I trust my team. भैया, if you trust them, share the equity with them, ना. Trust is not just a word. Right? So anyway.
That's amazing. I think that's going to stay with a lot of us. Have patience and have trust. Yashish, India is an interesting market with many segments, many target audiences. India, Bharat, Bharat 1, Bharat 2. As you think about scale, how do you think about, how should founders think about various segments? Yeah.
See, I think a very important question is when should you think about scale? I mentioned from 2008 to 2011, we did not scale. We stayed small. We decidedly stayed small. Why was that? Because we hadn't found a model in which we could spend 100 rupees and make 100 rupees. And so till we had found that, we did not scale. The total sales team we had was 32 people. It stayed at 32 people. Nothing. No change. I still remember when in 2008, I was doing my first review with Jerry, same guy I spoke about, the Sikkimese guy. I told him, look, you are right now spending 100 rupees and making 10 rupees. When he heard the whole thing, he was sitting there, he just fell and he had fainted. Because I told him you have to make 100 rupees and he couldn't imagine how. But for 3 years, we stayed small. So what I'm trying to say is very critical. Know when to scale. The second thing is when you're scaling, you're not guessing. While scaling, you don't guess. So we were very certain, this is the segment, we have understood it. When I spend 100 rupees on it, I'm making 110 rupees now. Now I can scale, right? And then when you scale, you don't have to look back. You have to trust. You have to trust your team. You have to trust everybody. That trust does come from shared equity. Otherwise, if you don't have shared equity, people will use you, right? So the reason our people never left was because they had this shared equity, right? And then you scale, yeah, we went from whatever, 32 people to 10,000 people in a span of 3 years, as I say, or 4 or 5 years, whatever it was, 11 to 15. There's no problem once you know. Now, segments you spoke about. Our segment is very tightly defined. A family earning more than 5 lakh rupees. It's not changed. Yes, there is a Bharat. Yes, there is a bottom of the pyramid. It's huge. It is not my segment. I will not go and scale in that segment without understanding how I can make money there. I also know people above 50 lakhs do not usually buy from Policy Bazaar. That is also not my segment. So I don't have to listen to their feedback. When they tell me you call too much, I say, yes, you worry about it. The person who earns 5 lakh rupees does not worry about it. So actually, you are not my segment. I'm not interested in you. So when you are scaling, you have to know your segment. You have to know your business proposition. You have to know every aspect of what you're doing crystal clear. Otherwise, you'll scale into, it's like pressing the accelerator when you don't know you've got a road ahead of you. Don't do that, yeah? Obviously.
Yashish, early on in the conversation, you spoke about Policy Bazaar being one of the most mature tech platforms globally in this space. Can you tell us a little bit about how are you using tech, maybe AI or anything else?
See, if you think about, my daughter goes to, she studies economics in college. And the 101 in economics is information arbitrage. And the example they always give is insurance. And why is that? In insurance, you know something that the insurance company does not know. So if you misquote, if you misinform, they will assume like you are somebody else and they will insure you accordingly. And you will get a product and the insurance company would have got cheated, right? So in this basis, the information you provide, you can cheat an insurance company. So it's very, very critical. I'll give you a simple example. Suppose somebody's got a serious disease and they don't declare it. And they take the policy and assume they get the policy. They can next day go and claim. And the insurance company will be collecting 10,000 rupees and paying 5 lakh rupees. That is the problem with insurance all over the world. Imagine if you could make life insurance purchase very, very easy, as in just buy with no checks and balances, then everybody would have, while the, people are going to the morgue, they will buy a life insurance. Because that's the easiest way, right? Pay 1,000 rupees and get 1 crore rupees, right? And by the way, people do try that. So one of the biggest risks in life insurance is dead people buying policies. So this was the industry which requires the maximum amount of intelligence about the consumer, best amount of declaration. So we've deployed, and customers say it in many ways. Sometimes the person is talking to you on the phone and he says, oh, and when do you cover cataract? You ask the person, why are you asking about cataract if you don't have cataract? Right? So there's declaration and there is passive and active declaration. There are a lot of other ways in which if you talk to somebody, they know too much about claims. How does a car get insured? Which garage? What all do you cover? That means this is a serial claimer. Right? So these are the kind of information that you're picking up all the time. And if you are able to manage that, you can manage your claims ratio very well. So that is where Policybazaar has moved ahead of almost every other platform in the world in terms of information capture, information usage, voice analytics, liveness tests, likeness. You'll be very surprised when you're talking on Policybazaar, we have mechanisms to gauge if you are well or not well from voice analytics. And that's happening on a regular basis. So there's just a huge amount of analytics happening at the back end, which the world outside cannot see. But yes, the people who want to see it can see it. And a lot of it was not possible back in 2008, but it's become possible now. But we have a huge advantage because you have 15 years of data. See, all our voice notes, etc., have been recorded for 15 years. And we also have 15 years of claims data now. So you can marry it very, very quickly. So without that data, you can't do much. And we are pretty much the only place in India where you have that data.
Yashish, you started with insurance and then forayed into mutual funds, loans. So as entrepreneurs sitting here, think about adjacencies, categories outside their core. When is the right time to start beyond your core product?
So as I look around, I don't see too many people who've mastered their core. Honestly, like, I'm not saying it in a bad way. I mean, you're young people, you're aspiring people. This platform is called Aspire. So I think mature your core first. Go out when the core is strong. Otherwise, this will be a problem, right? You'll be fighting two battles at the same time. You go out when you don't have a battle to fight on your core, or your core is already very strong. Is what I would say. Otherwise, you would spread too thin and it'll cause problems.
Great point. I would love to get your views on how you use partnerships, alliances to scale your business, and what role has it played in the Policybazaar journey?
So we obviously do not have our own products except our platform, which is our product. We work with, between insurance and loans, we work with about 150 different partners, all of which are very large organizations because these are banks, these are multi-billion-dollar insurance companies. Most of them are larger than us. So at least from an ego perspective, much larger than us. So we have to deal with all these partners. Now, talking about tech, analytics, etc., marketing intelligence, those areas, we have been very in-house oriented. So my approach is, even if it's more expensive, even if it takes longer, just do it yourself. You will learn a lot. And that way, you will be in a better position in the future. We are not a seller of these technologies. So while we may have the most advanced AI, we are not doing it for other organizations. We're just doing it for ourselves. And because of the market share we have in India, we tend to be quite good at it because others just don't have the data. Like, if you really wanted to get voice analytics data, it doesn't exist anywhere else. So it doesn't help if somebody's doing voice analytics on some small amount of data. The intelligence gathered will be very low compared to what we run now 17 different languages. We're running our natural language processing in, right? Difficult if you don't have Policybazaar. So I think the approach there is much more treated as core. I don't know right or wrong. Whatever is non-core, like HR systems, etc. There it's but sales, marketing, insurance product, that is core. Rather develop it ourselves than make somebody else strong who can then develop other clients, because that is not the great thing for us.
Yashish, often for any founder, the successes are covered a lot. And, in hindsight, it seems like the founder did no wrong, never took a wrong decision, never had a challenge. In your journey since 2008, tell us about one or two times which were really, really challenging for Policy Bazaar. And what was your mental state? How did you think about it? And how did you overcome that?
So yeah, it's a bit strange, but there have been times when we felt in the beginning that out of 365 days in a year, probably 200 days we felt that the organization was doing something really wrong, like in the sense not really building a great business, and maybe 100 days we felt we were the best in the world. I think ratio kept changing over time and became more and more towards the better days. I've made a lot of mistakes, but it's whether you accept those are mistakes or you make strengths out of them that matters. So I'll give you some example, right? I don't hire perfect people. So almost every time I hire somebody, it's like, oh my God, I think we've made a mistake, right? Because they either don't know their job, or they have an attitude issue, or they have something. But what I've realized is, and this may sound odd to you, but I think the job of a leader is not to identify those mistakes, is to figure out, okay, how with these imperfections, how are we going to work alongside them? I tell all my immediate reports also, there are 4 or 5 direct reports, right? I say each one of you is a character, right? But the point is, my job is to work with all of those characters, because that's the critical part, right? That do you give up? It's like if you're married, you're going to make, sometimes some people think you're going to make the marriage work, right? So that's it. It's really that simple. And my attitude is always make things work. So that attitude doesn't give you the option to fail. I know that could be a kind of crude answer, but that's the reality. If I gauge myself, it's really, I don't give up easily. And many people have told me that I probably keep employees for too long after it's clear they should not be in the company in many ways. People have made fatal mistakes. And I've said, so what? They're human. Like fatal mistakes for which they would get fired from somewhere else, right? And we've just said, so what? It doesn't matter. Even we make mistakes. What's the big deal? We'd rather talk to them and kind of work with them than try to judge them. Yeah, that's really how I see it, yeah.
Yashish is making it sound so simple, but these are very deep life lessons. Yashish, one last question for you. There's a lot of emerging digital public infrastructure coming up in fintech. So common account aggregator,
Yeah.
all the new stack which RBI and NPCI have been launching. Any thoughts on what are the discontinuities you see where some of these founders could build on?
I think there's a huge amount of data that's going to be available. There's a lot of intelligence layers that can be built on that. And we would love to partner with people who are building such intelligence layers. Whether it is the account aggregator framework, whether it is the NHI, the National Health Authorities platform, whether it is the Aadhaar, the India stack itself, right? Whether it's the IIB data that exists. I think each one of these, see, in all of them, my view is there'll be a regulated entity. There would be tech analytics people who would work on it, who would create value out of it. And then there would be consumer-centric, consumer-facing organizations that will try to make it work together with everything. So I think we're at a golden age of data here. And so I would encourage people to use that. And obviously, like it's very cliched, whatever else I would say, right? It's pretty obvious to everybody that that's a huge opportunity. And it doesn't require too much money, right? It just requires you and being able to engage with that data. I think from a government perspective, what I would hope is that this does get leveraged by all the Indian organizations. I think think that's also quite critical, and does not get restricted to just being used by a few, because that's not the purpose of this data, right? This data should go to everybody, and yeah, that's all.
Any questions? We have time for one or two questions. Yes.
It was a very nice session. Thanks, Yashish and Apurva, for this. I have one question. How you optimize this? If I may ask, you have given a gamut of knowledge to us, which is good. But I just want to how you optimize it year on year. If you have a
How do you make it better year on year?
yeah.
Yeah, the kind of things we spoke about, like I spoke about people management and not judging but accepting, talking, trying to make it success out of failed situations. It comes with time, it comes with practice. Like none of us were born that way, right? So we realize over, like some of us, at least I realized over time that that's the better way of doing things, because otherwise you just run out of people, right? Because everybody has something and you can start judging people. Everybody has some issue. I myself have issues. As you know, Guru Nanak said, when you go out to try and find bad people, just look at the mirror. You know, you won't need to look much further. So I guess it comes with time. It comes now, and you have to also. I believe a lot in setting the right incentives for people, and the right alignment for people, and then the right, I won't call it education, but I would say the right message to them. Like for Jerry, at that time, in 2008, the message was, do not scale till you have reached 1:1. Because I know you know how to run call centers, and you have worked for General Electric before, and you have worked for e-bookers before, which were large organizations, and you built 1,000 people call centers. And I know you can do that. But that's not the skill we're going to judge you on here. Right now, what's important for us is we don't scale something which is not working. And for him to have the patience and trust that what Yashish is saying is correct. And for him to first faint and say, oh my God, this is such a tall mountain, I'll never be able to climb. But then wake up and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start climbing it step by step. And his question to me was, okay, Yashish, what loss are you willing to take? And I said, I'm happy to take 1 crore a month, which is a pretty big loss. Many people here might call it 1 lakh a month. But I said, 1 crore a month I'll carry. Beyond that, I won't carry. Right? And that is for all his fixed costs, everything, all infrastructure, everything put in. Right? And that's what we carried. We carried 1 crore a month of loss as Policy Bazaar. Otherwise, we did not carry more than that. So,
Thank you, and it was a nice insight. And I guess this is how we scale, right?
this is one way. There are many other ways. I'm not saying this is the right way or the wrong way. People have different things. This is what I'm comfortable with. Because I like to stay grounded, have my feet on the ground. I cannot fly without my feet being somewhere, right? So I think, I don't know if I'm answering it correctly. There are ways to just go for it, and maybe that also leads to success. For me, it's very important to know that when I land, I will land firmly.
Yeah, that is the key. Thank you
Yeah.
so very much.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your talk. And my question is actually for both of you. So, as a startup, one question for Google is that we all use G Suite, and they have raised up the prices and costs too much. So, anything for the startups that you're going to do, and how you can help startups in that? And secondly, for Policy Bazaar, I would say I have not seen a better team than yours. एक दफ़ा आपको पॉलिसी बाजार का बटन दबाने की देर है, उसके बाद तो these guys will keep calling you, and that is what I want to learn from you. How did you get that kind of thing in your people?
Ma'am, I'll tell you a very simple thing that I told them back in 2008. And many of you will not agree with this. You don't have to. I told them, आप लोग फरिश्ते हो. आप लोग फरिश्ते क्यों हो? क्योंकि जब कोई मरता है या कोई बीमार पड़ता है तो उसकी मदद उसकी इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी ही करती है. और जब तक वो बीमार नहीं पड़ता, तक मरता नहीं, उसको उसकी वैल्यू नहीं होती. तो आपको लोग लात भी मारेंगे, आपको लोग ये भी कहेंगे कि हमें फ़ोन मत करो, आपको लोग ये भी कहेंगे कि आपको प्रोडक्ट नहीं खरीदना, वेस्ट है. लेकिन आपको ये काम करना है. ये काम सिर्फ फरिश्ते कर सकते हैं, ये और कोई कर ही नहीं सकता. तो दिस इज द थिंकिंग that is there with them. So when somebody is putting it down on them, they are almost in the Jesus state that forgive them, Lord, they don't know what they are doing. Because they don't know that not buying insurance is the most stupid thing they are doing today. Because anybody can fall sick, anybody can die, right? And if that happens, I've seen people cry when they don't have the funds to manage that situation. And they cry like anything. And they hope कि आज तो insurance होता. Insurance उस time पे नहीं मिलता. उस time पे तो भीख ही मिल सकती है. या दया मिल सकती
Yeah,
है.
but then what I learned from you was, I've read
It was
your
about
story.
telling them that you're doing the right thing. If
Yeah.
I had told them you're doing this for money, by the way, they're also making money. Let's not get that right. Their incentives are there. But I've never told them, earn your incentives through this. Right? It's about telling the person you're doing a good thing. When a person wakes up in the morning and feels he's doing a good thing, then he can fight the world. Otherwise, he says, I'm a cheap person. I'm calling people for money. He starts demeaning himself. Right? It's very important to feel good about yourself. If you don't feel good about yourself, nobody else will.
Yeah. Because this is what I learned basically was in your kind of business, it was a lot of rejection on the first day. And you have overcome that and made such a big. So I have read your story a lot. And
Thank you, ma'am.
And for you, Apur, what do you have for startups and how
So
do you
Google
bring
offers
it?
many programs for startups. We have a very large credits program where if you're building on Google Cloud, we offer credits to both funded and unfunded startups. So happy to share the page which has details of all the offers, policies, credit programs which we offer. We also run a very large program called Startup School, which is a skilling and competency building program, which about 15,000 startups attended this year. So again, offline, happy to share more with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any further questions. So thank you so much, Yashish, for a great chat. I learned a lot and wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Hope it was useful.